hum of Kalen Reed's private lab, the Sanctum, was a low, constant vibration, a symphony of advanced energy conduits and diagnostic arrays. Sterile white walls contrasted sharply with the verdant, bioluminescent flora that thrived in sealed terrariums, casting a soft, pulsing glow that painted the sleek chrome surfaces in shifting hues. Kalen, his dark hair perpetually a mess, leaned over a holographic schematic, his brow furrowed in concentration, the scent of ozone and purified air a familiar comfort. He was a man consumed by his work, his brilliant mind perpetually racing, ever on the cusp of a breakthrough. His gaze flickered to Elara, a small figure encased in the sleek, segmented exoskeleton that was his life's work. Her species, reclusive and ethereal, had skin that shimmered with an inner, organic luminescence, a delicate network of light that glowed even through the transparent panels of the suit. At 10 years old, Elara had never known life without paralysis, her congenital neural disorder a cruel tether. Yet, in her large, dark eyes, Kalen saw not despair, but a quiet, boundless curiosity, a resilience that humbled him. He adjusted a neural feedback loop, the faint whine of the system barely audible above the lab's steady thrum. Lady Seraphina, Elara's esteemed guardian and a matriarch of her species, stood silently in the corner, her ancient, dignified features unreadable, bathed in the soft, shifting light. Her robes, woven with threads that caught and amplified the ambient bioluminescence, seemed to absorb the lab's ethereal glow, making her appear almost a part of the living light. She had observed Kalen for weeks, a watchful, diplomatic presence, her silence speaking volumes of both trust and deep-seated caution. She represented the delicate balance her people maintained with the sprawling Galactic Federation, a balance Kalen often found himself forgetting in his relentless pursuit of scientific progress. His initial motivation had been pure, to alleviate suffering, a drive born from a personal loss that still echoed in the quiet chambers of his own heart. For Elara, he would push boundaries. Jax, Kalen's oldest friend and the architect of half the custom hardware in the Sanctum, lounged nearby, casually calibrating a plasma conduit. His usual sarcastic quips were notably absent, replaced by a quiet intensity that mirrored Kalen's. "Neural pathways are green across the board, Kalen," Jax announced, his voice a low rumble. "No aberrations, looks like you actually did it this time." Kalen nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "It's not just me, Jax. It's Elara." He turned to the girl, her eyes wide behind the exoskeleton's viewport. "Ready, Elara? Just a thought, remember. Your will extended." Elara's internal bioluminescence, usually a faint, intricate pattern, pulsed a little brighter, a visible ripple of excitement beneath her skin. She had spent years dreaming of this moment, of the world beyond her medbed. A small, almost imperceptible nod. Kalen's heart hammered against his ribs. This was it. The culmination of years of tireless work, endless calculations, and sleepless nights. His goal was simple, yet profound, for Elara to walk. He initiated the command. A faint whirring sound filled the air as the exoskeleton's joints whirred to life, a low thrumming resonating through the floor. Elara's bioluminescent neural pathways flared softly through her transparent skin, mimicking the complex energy currents within the suit. She took a tentative breath, then another. Kalen held his own. She pushed, a subtle mental command, and the exoskeleton's advanced actuators responded, lifting her foot. It hovered for a moment, then touched down. A single, wobbly step. Kalen let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Jax whistled softly. Seraphina's lips, usually a thin, grave line, curved upward in a rare, almost imperceptible smile. Elara's face, visible through the transparent visor, lit up with unbridled joy. She took another step, then another, a tentative stride across the polished plasteel floor. With each confident step, her inner light pulsed more vividly, a cascade of emerald and sapphire flowing beneath her skin. She wasn't just walking. She was soaring, her small body moving with a grace she had never experienced. "She's doing it, Kalen," Jax murmured, a genuine warmth in his voice. Kalen felt a rush of pure, unadulterated triumph, a feeling that eclipsed every past success. He saw Elara, not as a patient, but as a child finally freed. Their bond, forged in sterile labs and whispered hopes, solidified into something deeper, something akin to a familial connection. He watched as Elara, emboldened, started to stride confidently across the lab, a dancer finding her rhythm after a lifetime of stillness. The exoskeleton moved with her, a seamless extension of her will. This was perfect. This was success. Then, the perfection shattered. As Elara took another confident stride, her bioluminescent neural pathways flared, brighter than Kalen had ever seen. Pulses of light originated deeper than his technology should have been able to reach. It was as if her entire nervous system had become a conduit for raw, untamed energy. The light became blinding, too intense, too rapid, a frantic strobe beneath her delicate skin. The exoskeleton began to whine, a high-pitched shriek of protesting servos. It malfunctioned wildly, jerking and spasming. A wave of ancient, alien thoughts, overwhelming and utterly foreign, slammed into Elara's mind, a cacophony of voices and images that were not hers. She cried out, a guttural sound of pure terror, her eyes rolling back in her head. The vivid bioluminescence was now a chaotic, uncontrolled maelstrom. The exoskeleton convulsed, throwing her violently to the ground. She lay there, twitching, her small body racked by unseen forces, the suit's power core groaning ominously. "Elara!" Kalen shouted, his triumphant joy instantly replaced by icy terror. He scrambled forward, his fingers flying across his diagnostic pad, desperately trying to disconnect her. But the interface, his meticulously designed neural bridge, seemed to be amplifying whatever was happening, not containing it. His mind, usually so quick, stumbled, struggling to process the impossible. The readings flashed red, then black, then simply went blank, overwhelmed. Lady Seraphina rushed forward, her diplomatic poise crumbling, revealing raw, primal fear. She knelt beside Elara, her hands hovering, not touching. Her voice was a terrified whisper, speaking in her species' ancient tongue, words Kalen recognized from dusty lore archives. The conduit, it awakens. Jax was already scrambling to emergency power protocols, his face pale beneath his usually unflappable exterior. "Kalen, I'm losing all systems. What the hell is happening?" Kalen ignored him, his focus solely on Elara, whose inner light now pulsed like a dying star. His invention, meant to heal, was now a conduit for something monstrous. The air in the lab crackled with an unseen energy, leaving an acrid tang of ozone on his tongue. The triumph of moments ago had evaporated, replaced by the chilling reality that he had unleashed a force he could not comprehend, a force that was tearing Elara apart from the inside. Hours later, the Sanctum was a grim shadow of its former self. Emergency medical equipment now glowed ominously around Elara's medbed, replacing the celebratory holographic displays. Elara lay still, her small form barely perceptible beneath the shimmering medgel, her bioluminescence flaring erratically beneath her skin, a restless storm trapped within her. Her breathing was shallow, ragged. Kalen hunched over a flickering diagnostic screen, his face etched with despair, shouting commands to Jax. "Check the neural feedback again. Are you sure there's no residual energy signature?" But all readings were anomalous, incoherent noise. His instruments, designed for precise biological interfaces, were useless against this phenomenon. Jax shook his head, running a hand through his short, sandy hair. "Kalen, it's not just residual, it's active. There's something generating a massive, erratic psychic waveform within her, something beyond anything we've ever seen. It's like her brain is a receiver, and it's picking up every broadcast in the galaxy, all at once." His voice was laced with a dawning horror that matched Kalen's own. Lady Seraphina stood at the foot of the bed, her tall frame still, her face grave. Her eyes, usually calm and composed, held a profound sadness, a knowing sorrow. "It is as I feared," she began, her voice a low, resonant thrum. "The legends speak of the conduit. Our ancestors knew it. A vast, dormant collective consciousness sleeping beneath the very fabric of our reality. A psychic network connecting all sentient life, but too vast, too powerful for any single being to contain." Kalen scoffed, exhaustion making him irritable. "Seraphina, with all due respect, I'm talking about a neural event, not some ghost story." He blamed himself, a crushing weight in his chest. His genius, his compassion, had inadvertently opened a door that should have remained sealed. Seraphina's gaze was unwavering. "Your technology, Kalen, your interface, it did not create this. It merely amplified a latent connection. Elara's species, we have always been attuned to the whispers of this network, but it was always quiet, distant. Her congenital condition, the very pathways you sought to heal, may have made her uniquely susceptible, a perfectly tuned conduit." She gestured to the erratic flares beneath Elara's skin. "The conduit is not a ghost story, Doctor. It is a hunger, a vast, ancient sentience now reaching for conscious thought through Elara." As if on cue, a sudden, piercing psychic scream ripped through the air, not audibly, but directly into their minds. It was a soundless shriek of pure, agonizing mental anguish, raw and primal, accompanied by a fleeting, horrifying mosaic of chaotic images burning stars, the void of space, ancient, unidentifiable terrors. Kalen clutched his head, falling back against a console. Jack stumbled, his face ashen, gasping for breath. The sound was deafening inside their skulls, a pressure behind their eyes that threatened to split them open. Elara, even unconscious, convulsed violently on the medbed, her bioluminescence flaring white-hot before dimming to a desperate flicker. The psychic wave passed, leaving a ringing silence and the acrid scent of ozone even stronger in the air. Kalen stared at Elara, his scientific skepticism shattered. This was real. This was terrifying. His hands trembled. "What have I done?" he whispered, the words tasting like ash. He had sought to cure, to innovate, and instead he had condemned her. Seraphina's ancient wisdom, once dismissed, was now their only guide through this nightmare. They were united now, not by choice, but by the terrifying reality of Elara's deteriorating condition. Days blurred into a desperate scramble, a constant flight from the galactic authorities Kalen knew would soon come calling, drawn by the anomalous energy signature. They found themselves on a secluded asteroid, hidden deep within a nebular cloud, its surface barren and cold. Their temporary hideout was a cramped, barebones setup, repurposed from an abandoned mining station. The constant threat of detection hung heavy, a palpable pressure. Elara lay on a makeshift neural monitor, strapped down not to restrict her, but to keep her small body safe during the seizures. Kalen had jury-rigged the device, an attempt to at least track the conduit surges, if not understand or contain them. Her bioluminescence, usually a gentle, soothing display, now pulsed with a frightening irregularity, a visual representation of the psychic tempest raging within her. He sat beside her, whispering reassurances, stroking her hand. "It's all right, Elara, I'm here, we'll find a way." He knew his words were mostly for himself, a desperate mantra against the guilt that gnawed at his core. She was barely conscious, her eyes unfocused, but Kalen refused to leave her side. His own goal was simple, yet felt impossible. Protect her, keep her alive, stop this thing. Suddenly, Elara seized. Her small body arched, her eyes, wide with terror, snapped open, focusing directly on Kalen. Her bioluminescence flared, a blinding white light that seemed to emanate from the very depths of her being. Kalen flinched but held her hand tighter. Then, a voice, raspy and ancient, utterly alien, emerged from her throat, a fragmented phrase that wasn't hers. "Starbirth, hunger, endless sea of thought, consume." The words were raw, primal, vibrating with an immense, terrifying sentience that resonated in Kalen's bones. On his monitor, fleeting, horrifying images flashed, nebulae collapsing into black holes, galaxies swirling like cosmic soup, and a vast, empty darkness that stretched beyond comprehension. He saw, for a terrifying instant, a cosmic scale of thought, a being of pure consciousness devouring entire star systems. It was a vision of overwhelming power, ancient beyond reckoning, indifferent to life and death. The conduit. It was speaking through her. The moment passed as quickly as it came. Elara collapsed back against the bed, gasping, her bioluminescence dimming to a faint, desperate flicker. Tears, shimmering with her inner light, streaked down her small face. She was exhausted, traumatized, a child grappling with the weight of an entire universe in her mind. Kalen's breath hitched. He had seen it, felt it. The conduit was not just a network. It was an entity, a monstrous consciousness awakening within his patient. His helplessness gnawed at him, twisting his gut. He was a scientist, not a warrior, and this enemy was beyond his understanding. Their flight across the galaxy was a blur of anonymous way stations and asteroid belt hideouts, each stop feeling more precarious than the last. The constant hum of Seraphina's diplomatic shuttle was a backdrop to Kalen's frantic attempts to find a solution, and Jax's grim, pragmatic efforts to keep them hidden. Word had filtered through the dark channels that Valerius Corporation, a monolithic entity with fingers in every illicit pie from mining to advanced bioweaponry, was actively seeking them. They called Elara the Source. Their next destination was Xylos, a teeming galactic hub, a multi-level market district choked with the cacophony of multi-species chatter, the cloying scent of exotic spices mingling with exhaust fumes. Kalen, disguised in a heavy cloaked robe, navigated the dense crowds, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm. Elara was shielded, her small form bundled beneath layers of fabric, a compact psychic dampener humming softly around her. Even with the dampener, her bioluminescence sometimes flickered under the cloth, a tiny, defiant beacon. "We need a class-7 modulator and a few phase array emitters," Kalen muttered to Jax, his voice low. "Black market only, nothing traceable." Jax, his face partially obscured by a holographic scarf, nodded. "Already tagged a few vendors. Just try not to look like you're carrying the galactic equivalent of a ticking nuclear reactor, Kalen." His sarcasm, though muted, was a welcome, grounding presence amidst the paranoia. They split up, Jax heading towards a stall hawking questionable tech. Kalen kept Elara close, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder. The market was a sensory overload, the blinding flash of neon signs, the clamor of bartering, the pungent aroma of alien street food. Suddenly, Elara stiffened. Her shields flickered, the dampener sputtering. A wave of pure, unadulterated dread rippled outwards from her, not a sound, but a feeling that slammed into Kalen's mind. He saw nearby civilians clutch their heads, their faces twisting in pain and confusion, a low murmur spreading through the crowd. "They're here," Kalen hissed, his eyes scanning the throng. He spotted them immediately. The sleek, dark uniforms of Valerius Corp operatives, moving with predatory efficiency, their comms clearly active, zeroing in. One of them, a hulking figure with a cybernetic eye, locked gazes with Kalen. "Run," Kalen yelled, grabbing Elara. They melted into the chaos, a frantic chase erupting through the market. Laser fire ripped through the air, searing through stall canopies. Sonic stunners pulsed, knocking shoppers off their feet. Jax appeared from nowhere, his usually casual movements replaced by surprising agility. "This way, Allie," he shouted, blasting a pursuing operative with an improvised EMP burst from his wrist-mounted comm. They ducked and weaved, Kalen shielding Elara, Jax creating diversions with strategically placed tech. Kalen knew they couldn't outrun them for long. Valerius Corp was too well-equipped, too ruthless. In a desperate moment, as a laser blast singed his sleeve, Elara cried out, a small, choked sound. Her bioluminescence flared violently, ignoring the damaged dampener. A localized psychic blast, raw and uncontrolled, burst from her, a wave of pure force that slammed into the closest operatives. Two of them staggered, their hands flying to their heads, dropping their weapons. The distraction bought them precious seconds, but it also painted a clear target on Elara. More operatives converged, their expressions grim. Kalen saw a fleeting moment in the cybernetic operatives' eyes, a flicker of grim determination, a silent acknowledgement of the astronomical corporate targets they had to meet, no matter the cost. His fear of failure outweighed any hesitation. "She just confirmed our intel," an operative's voice crackled through a discarded comm unit. "The psychic energy is off the charts. Move to secure. We need to go now," Jax yelled, shoving Kalen and Elara towards a precarious cargo lift. They jumped, the lift groaning under their combined weight, ascending rapidly as laser fire peppered the ground below. They barely escaped capture, the narrow miss confirming Valerius Corp's relentless pursuit and the terrifying power Elara now wielded, a power she couldn't control. The diplomatic shuttle, Seraphina's vessel, was a beacon of sanctuary after the chaos of Xylos. They were safe for now. Seraphina led Kalen and Jax to a forgotten, dust-covered research library within the embassy's secure section, a place hidden from Federation prying eyes. Holographic projectors hummed to life, casting shimmering, ethereal glyphs and ancient stories onto the aged synth-stone walls. The air grew heavy with the rich, earthy scent of alien flora, brought from her homeworld and nestled in decorative planters, their subtle glow illuminating the arcane symbols. Seraphina began, her voice a low, melodic drone that seemed to vibrate with untold centuries of wisdom. "My ancestors, the Starwalkers, were not merely explorers of the cosmos. They were explorers of consciousness. They believed that all life, all sentience, was merely a single facet of a greater cosmic mind." She pointed to a shimmering glyph depicting a network of luminous threads connecting stars. They briefly tapped into this consciousness, which they called the conduit. Kalen frowned, leaning closer to the projection. "Tapped into, what does that mean exactly? Like a signal?" Seraphina shook her head. "More like a vast, untamed ocean. It proved too vast, too powerful. It was not a singular entity, but a collective of raw, untamed thought, an echo of every mind that had ever existed, every thought, every emotion, amplified to a scale that threatened to unravel their own identities." Kalen listened intently, his scientific mind trying to reconcile the esoteric language with empirical data. So, it's not an organism, but a resonance? More than that, Serafina replied, her gaze fixed on a glowing depiction of a colossal, crystalline structure that pulsed with a deep, internal light. It is pure information, pure experience, a sea of consciousness. And it is hungry, seeking form, seeking a vessel to experience linear time, to fully awaken in this dimension. Our ancestors, in their wisdom, knew it was too dangerous. They worked for generations to reseal it, to contain it, to shepherd it back into dormancy. They built places, nexus points, designed to harmonize and contain its power. They called them the vaults. Kalen's eyes widened. He stared at the shimmering glyphs, then back at his own neural diagrams, suddenly seeing patterns, connections he had previously dismissed as mere artistic flourish. The geometric precision, the resonant frequencies, they weren't just symbolic. They were schematics. A containment field, he murmured, realization dawning. A biological amplifier, but designed to control the flow, not just channel it. Jax, ever the pragmatist, leaned forward. So, if Elara is the key, could one of these vaults be the lock? Serafina nodded slowly, her expression grim. Our most sacred vault, the primary nexus, lies hidden deep within the bioluminescent forests of our homeworld. It is a place guarded by ancient wards, known only to a select few. It was designed to either contain the conduit, or, in a desperate last resort, to allow a chosen individual to attempt to integrate with it, to guide and control its awakening, rather than be consumed by it. But the cost is unimaginable. Integrating it, Kalen whispered, tracing a finger along the holographic projection. He saw the risk, the profound danger, but also a desperate thread of hope. It was a scientific problem, a bioneural engineering challenge, albeit on a cosmic scale. I could modify my interface, he proposed, his mind already racing. Combine it with the vault's ancient tech, not to suppress it entirely, but to create a stable anchor point. Give Elara a fighting chance to assert her own consciousness, to become the conductor, not just the instrument. Serafina's gaze softened slightly, a flicker of appreciation for Kalen's relentless determination. It is a desperate plan, Kalen Reed, but perhaps it is our only hope. She opened a secret data channel, revealing star charts, encrypted routes, and a path to Elara's homeworld's most sacred hidden site. The dread of the conduit, mixed with the cautious hope of a solution, settled over them all. The weight of their journey grew heavier, the destination a promise of either salvation or annihilation. The cramped, secret compartment aboard Serafina's diplomatic shuttle was thick with tension. They were en route to Elara's homeworld, the last leg of their desperate journey. Kalen had spent every waking moment refining his schematics, modifying his neural interface designs, adapting them to the ancient, cryptic diagrams Serafina had provided of the vault's internal mechanisms. The bioluminescent walls of the compartment pulsed with a nervous rhythm, mirroring their heightened anxieties. Kalen laid out his modified designs on a small, holographic projector. The vault's core resonance chamber acts as a massive psychic amplifier. My interface will tap into that, but instead of passively channeling, it will actively regulate. Think of it as a cosmic filter, allowing Elara to process the conduit's raw input without being overwhelmed, giving her a chance to communicate with it, rather than just be a receiver. His voice was clipped, betraying his deep-seated anxiety. Jax, peering over Kalen's shoulder, zoomed in on a particularly complex section. It's brilliant, Kalen, but you're trying to build a dam out of space-time fabric and hope it holds back a tidal wave. The power fluctuations alone could fry Elara's central nervous system. Not to mention, if the conduit resists, it could simply absorb your tech and her along with it. He paused, then offered, but I think I can compensate for the feedback loop with a series of quantum stabilizers. It'll be risky, but it might give her an extra layer of protection. Serafina's voice was grave, her eyes fixed on Elara, who sat huddled in the corner, trembling, her bioluminescence a faint, scared glow. The spiritual risks, Kalen, are immense. Even if her physical being survives, her soul may be irrevocably altered. She may lose herself to the collective, becoming merely an echo, or worse, become a voice for its insatiable hunger. This is not just a technological challenge, it is a spiritual crucible. Elara looked between them, her small hand reaching out for Kalen's. Her touch was cold, clammy, but firm. Her eyes, wide and luminous, met his. I don't want it inside me anymore, she whispered, her voice reedy but clear, a new resolve flickering within its tremor. It's so loud, so many voices. But I want to fight back. Kalen squeezed her hand, a lump forming in his throat. He looked at Serafina, then at Jax. They were all in this, a fragile, unconventional family bound by a terrifying secret and a desperate hope. He pulled Elara into a gentle embrace, burying his face in her hair, inhaling the faint, sweet scent of her species' bioluminescence. "We'll fight with you, Elara," he promised, the words a silent vow. "Whatever it takes. We'll find a way for you to be free." The shuttle shuddered, announcing their imminent atmospheric entry. They had reached Elara's homeworld. The final confrontation was upon them, a gamble against ancient power and corporate greed, with Elara's very soul as the ultimate stake. The ancient vault was not what Kalen had expected. It was a cavernous chamber, carved from living rock deep within the bioluminescent forest. Ancient glyphs, pulsing with a faint, inner light, covered the walls, resonating with a barely perceptible psychic hum. The air was thick with the rich, earthy scent of ancient flora and the acrid tang of ozone, already intensifying as Valerius Corp's forces breached the outer wards. The forest outside screamed with the tearing of ancient trees as their ships landed. There through the first line, Jax shouted over the growing din, his fingers flying across a holographic console, rigging their modified tech to the vault's core conduits. Massive energy spike inbound. "Kalen, get her ready." Kalen nodded, his hands trembling slightly as he secured Elara into the modified neural interface, connecting her directly to the vault's central crystal. The crystal pulsed with an emerald light, an ancient heart beginning to beat. Elara's bioluminescence flared, syncing with the crystal, her eyes squeezed shut in terrified anticipation. "Remember what we practiced, Elara. Find your center, push back, not away." Serafina moved with surprising speed, her diplomatic robes discarded, revealing a sleek, armored undersuit. She held an archaic energy staff, its tip crackling with blue energy. "I will hold the breach," she declared, her voice resonating with an unshakable resolve. Her goal was clear: buy Elara time. Explosions rocked the vault as Valerius Corp assault teams swarmed inside, their heavy energy weapons spitting fire, their armor gleaming in the shifting bioluminescent light. They were methodical, ruthless. "Secure the asset," a voice barked over a comm channel, distorted by the psychic interference. Kalen and Jax finished rigging the protective, but unstable energy field, the humming of the vault's core deepening. It was a precarious shield, designed to give Elara just enough time and space to fight her internal battle. Jax positioned himself behind a fallen piece of crystal, firing bursts of concentrated energy from a custom-built railgun, covering Kalen. Elara's world dissolved into a maelstrom of raw consciousness. Connected directly to Kalen's modified interface and the vault's core, she was no longer just a girl, but a nexus. Visions of cosmic scale, ancient battles, and terrifying sentience flooded her mind. She saw starbirth and stardeath, the agonizing screams of dying worlds, the silent joy of nascent life. The conduit was an ocean of thought, and she was a tiny drop trying to withstand its tide. It spoke to her, not in words, but in pure, overwhelming emotion. "Join us, become the vastness, relinquish the self," she screamed, not a sound from her physical body, but a psychic shriek that vibrated through the vault, shaking the very crystal in its core. Tears, shimmering with her bioluminescence, streamed down her face. She felt herself being stretched, her individual consciousness a flimsy membrane against the crushing pressure of the collective. She saw images of herself, her memories, being devoured, assimilated. But then she remembered Kalen's promise, Serafina's ancient wisdom, Jax's protective sarcasm. She remembered wanting to fight back. "No," she screamed, the word echoing not in the physical air, but in the psychic ether of the conduit. She focused, using Kalen's interface as an anchor, drawing upon the vault's harmonizing energy. She would not surrender. She would not be consumed. She would integrate, yes, but on her own terms. It was a terrifying, impossible choice: sacrifice her individuality or risk total annihilation. She chose the risk. A wave of controlled psychic energy erupted from Elara, a brilliant, blinding pulse of green-gold light that slammed into the conduit's raw, invasive presence. It was not an attack, but an assertion. It was her light, her consciousness, pushing back, forging a new, fragile balance within the overwhelming power. The psychic wave repelled the conduit's attempt to subsume her, pushing it back, creating a pocket of calm within the storm. Simultaneously, the energy wave, a ripple of pure will, slammed into Valerius Corp's forces. Their heavy armor crackled, their weapons sputtered, and several operatives were thrown back, dazed and disoriented, clutching their heads in agony. Serafina, seeing the opening, surged forward, her energy staff sweeping through the ranks, incapacitating operatives with practiced ease. Jax, his railgun humming, targeted their communications arrays, silencing their desperate calls for backup. The cybernetic operative, stunned but still tactical, saw their window closing. He grabbed a crucial data drive from a downed drone and ordered a retreat. Valerius Corp was in disarray, their sophisticated technology useless against a power they couldn't comprehend, but they were not completely defeated. The ancient vault, though scarred by the brief, intense battle, was quiet once more, filled only with the soft hum of residual energy and the faint glow of the bioluminescent walls. Kalen rushed to Elara, cradling her small form as she lay weakly connected to the now steady crystal. Her bioluminescence, though still vibrant, had settled into a steady, gentle rhythm, a reassuring pulse beneath her transparent skin. He ran diagnostics, his hands shaking, his relief palpable as green lights finally flashed on his monitor. She was alive. She was herself. Serafina, her face streaked with dirt but her eyes burning with triumph, surveyed the damaged vault. She was already dictating encrypted messages into her comlink, her diplomatic mind instantly shifting to the political fallout. The Federation must be informed, but carefully. Valerius Corp's transgressions are now undeniable. Jax, nursing a nasty bruise on his temple, offered a rare, solemn smile to Kalen. "She did it, Kalen. She actually did it." Elara stirred in Kalen's arms. Her eyes fluttered open, still glowing with an inner light but now clear, filled with an ancient wisdom that seemed too vast for her young face. "It's quiet now," she whispered, her voice still reedy, but imbued with a newfound calm and clarity. "The ocean is still there, Kalen, vast and deep, but I am still me. I showed it boundaries." She described her experience, hinting at the vastness now within her, the endless echoes of consciousness she had touched, the overwhelming sense of being. She spoke of it not with terror, but with a serene understanding, a new kind of power that emanated from her. Kalen was overcome with a mix of guilt and fierce, protective love. The child he had set out to heal was gone, replaced by something profoundly more. A nexus, a keeper, a conduit with a will of her own. He had unleashed this, and now he had to help her navigate it. "Elara," he began, his voice thick with emotion, I am so sorry, for what I unleashed, for what I put you through." His guilt was a raw, aching wound. He had sought to cure and instead had fundamentally altered her. Elara simply reached out, her small hand, still shimmering with her inner light, touching his face. Her touch was warm now, reassuring. It was a silent forgiveness, a profound acceptance of her new reality and his part in it. The quiet strength in her gaze pierced through his self-recrimination, reminding him that though she was changed, she was still Elara. The family, battered and exhausted, understood their new, terrifying, and profoundly interconnected reality. The vault hummed around them, a testament to what had been fought and what had been won. The following weeks were a whirlwind of diplomatic maneuvers and scientific damage control. Serafina, ever the astute diplomat, delivered a powerful address to the Galactic Federation Council. Her voice resonated through the grand, synth-stone chambers, echoing off the polished surfaces. She subtly exposed Valerius Corp's transgressions, presenting undeniable evidence of their illegal research and attempted corporate capture of Elara. She carefully skirted the full, terrifying truth of the conduit's nature, instead emphasizing the grave risks of unchecked corporate greed and the exploitation of ancient, unknown energies. Kalen, standing beside her, felt the weight of the moment. He had to choose his words carefully to tell a partial truth for a greater good. He presented his revised findings, a sanitized version of the truth, focusing on the ethical implications of tampering with unique species biology and the dangers of rapid, irresponsible technological advancement. He spoke with a newfound passion, his scientific detachment replaced by a fervent commitment to responsibility. He omitted any mention of the conduit's sentience, instead portraying it as a rare, powerful biological phenomenon. Valerius Corporation, represented by holographic avatars that flickered with barely concealed rage, was publicly condemned, stripped of key licenses, and slapped with unprecedented sanctions. Their influence was crippled, their reputation in tatters, but Kalen knew they were far from destroyed. They would linger, a shadowy threat. Later, in a quiet, beautiful home provided by Serafina on a neutral moon, a sanctuary nestled amidst lush, alien flora, Kalen watched Elara. Her bioluminescence was now a serene, steady glow, a tranquil sea of light within her. She sat cross-legged by a translucent wall, her eyes closed, subtly interacting with the ancient flora in the garden. He saw the plants around her respond, their own inner lights pulsing in harmonious patterns, leaves gently unfurling as if conversing with an unseen force. She wasn't just observing nature. She was part of it, connected to the deep, silent language of life. Jax, surprisingly quiet, finished setting up a new, improved lab for Kalen in the lower levels of their new home. It was smaller than the Sanctum, but infinitely more personal, infused with the quiet understanding that had grown between them. "Still think a particle accelerator would fit in here," Jax quipped, a hint of his old sarcasm returning, but his gaze on Elara was soft, paternal. Kalen watched Elara, a profound mix of wonder, relief, and lingering trepidation in his heart. She was no longer just a girl, paralyzed and vulnerable. She was a nexus, a bridge between the physical and the cosmic, learning to manage immense power. He was no longer just a scientist. He was her protector, her guide, her adopted father in this strange, new existence. He finally understood that true progress required empathy and responsibility, not just innovation. The family Kalen, Elara, Serafina, and Jax was unconventional, scarred, but united. They faced an uncertain future, knowing the galactic echo of the conduit would always be with them, a constant reminder of the fine line between scientific wonder and cosmic horror. But they also knew that family, forged through shared challenges and unconditional support, was the strongest bond of all. Elara, though forever bound to the ancient network, had found a fragile balance, embracing her unique destiny. The galaxy was left to grapple with the existence of this newly awakened power and its implications for galactic peace, establishing new, cautious regulations for ancient technology. It was a new beginning, marked by a cautious optimism, emphasizing growth, and the continued vigilance against the lingering shadow of the conduit and those who still sought to exploit its power.